just her performance. The physicality of the performance. Like, just as like an actor and an actor trainer, like I usually do like movement-based methods. So like watching the way she like can just contort herself, like the physicality of that performance was amazing.
So she was inspired by Butoh dance. That was a specific thing. Is this something that you encountered in your education?
Yeah, actually my background is in Japanese performance methods.
Excellent. Okay, so
not Butoh specifically, but yeah, I'm very aware of it.
Well, tell us about that. How did you, like, when you're watching her performance, what are you seeing? What are the intricacies of what she's doing that you're seeing? Yeah,
well, it takes a lot of muscular exertion to do what she's doing without anybody. I shouldn't say anybody, but a lot of people can do what she's doing, but in a way that's going to put a lot of strain on their joints and their bones, right? But like anybody can kind of like crank their back or their neck that way, but they will hurt themselves. I think a lot of people don't understand the amount of training it takes to be able to do that stuff take after take, or if you're doing theater, night after night, performance, to be able to do that stuff, repeating it over and over without hurting yourself. It takes a lot of training, often centered on breath support, that people, I would say most people don't understand just the amount of training it takes. It very much is an athletic feat to do what she was doing.
And by all accounts, it's all her. There's no computer generated imagery added. There's no wire work. It's like all of that is her, and she needs that. And I mean,
Butoh training and other sort of more physical styles of actor training, much of it involves just endurance and strength training. That when you look at it from the outside, doesn't necessarily look directly related to acting. Like a lot of the exercises I have people do and I work with them, like they'll like stomp in a circle for like a long time, and it wears them out and it builds their legs and their core strength. And you look at it from the outside and it's like, what does this have to do with acting, right? But there's a lot of conditioning and training that goes into it that from an outsider's perspective, you're like, yeah, you might be like, what? That's not acting. That looks ridiculous. But it's, I always use the example, like, take any sport, right? Like if a basketball player is going to the gym to like curl or do leg lifts or something, the act of doing leg lifts is not the act of playing basketball, but you have to do that conditioning work in order to play the sport. And it's the same thing with physical actors, right? They do a lot of work that doesn't look like it doesn't look like they're acting, but it very much is related.
It built so much the believability for me with what you said to how much physical strength and exertion she gave, because there's probably a bunch of the scenes with her, shaking and contorting. A lesser actor, it might not have been as believable in a scene it's required for it to be so believable, and just the way it was like terrifying seeing that, and it was hence made it so effective. It's just you immediately believe that everything she's doing is so real.
You're saying she needed an exorcist, which and talk about another, like Linda Blair. She had a lot of physicality, and she's hurting still because she didn't have that training of how to throw herself around. What did you think of Bill Skarsgård's performance physically? Like, what were you seeing there?
I mean, I can only imagine the strain that much like prosthetic was putting on his body.
I heard it was
probably.
Like 6 hours of makeup or prosthetics.
Yeah, he said for the full body, he said he was in makeup for 6 hours. And then for just hands and face, it was like 3. Yeah.
Unbelievable. But you're talking about like things that seem chaotic and yet are so controlled. I think that fits perfectly into the aesthetic of the movie. It's something Eggers does a lot. He's throwing grenades into the lives of his characters, but he is portraying it with such like ultimate control.
Yeah.
And I think that creates a really unique feeling for the audience of there is a bit of chaos, but there's also just like an aesthetic control there.
Yeah. And I think with Skarsgård's performance, I think one way of thinking about it, and I actually, and I think Eggers actually referred to it this way as well, but it's a lot like mask work. Like a lot of actors, well, a lot of theater productions use masks, and a lot of actors train with masks. And a lot of that is, the idea of mask work is, how do we communicate things with our voice, with our body, when we don't necessarily have the tool of our face. And I think thinking of his performance as mask work is kind of useful, because for most of the movie, he doesn't have the use of his face. He has the use of his silhouette, so that might affect the way he puts a shoulder out or something. So he has the use of his silhouette. He has the use of his voice. And even when we see his face, he has so much prosthetic on that it's not really his face, right? So
the thing that stands out is the eyes, but they're used sparingly. And it's very deliberately shown of just like these gigantic, powerful eyes that he has.